Always the most accommodating, nice guy out there. Chris Doering joining us here from the SEC Network, Florida alum, NFL guy. What's up, Chris? How you been, bud?
I'm good, David. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you saying that, too. It's a busy day for me. Just got done with your boy Peter Burns over on SEC this morning and about to head to the airport, man. I've never been to Columbus, Ohio, but I'm getting my first taste of the Horseshoe this weekend as we do some shows tonight and tomorrow for the lead up to Tennessee and Ohio State. So I had to go buy, as a Florida boy, I had to go buy a new coat, gloves, the whole it's supposed to be in like the teens and 20s. I'm not built for that stuff, Dave.
I'm not built for that either, and I'm glad you started with that game because, am I being an SEC homer here? Or I think Tennessee's going to win this game, and I don't know if convincingly is the right word because I know their injury situations. I understand the weather is going to play a factor, even though Tennessee gets snow. I just think Tennessee's a better team.
I agree with you, and I also I don't think the weather is as big a deal as people are making it out to be. Obviously, Knoxville is one of the more northern cities in the footprint of the SEC, but also this team is not like the Tennessee teams in years past. It's not like a typical Josh Heupel offense. I mean, they're much more built around running the football and playing great defense. And I think you look at certain matchups, they just favor Tennessee, particularly the offensive line for Ohio State, one that's had to shuffle a lot because of injuries this year, 19 different combinations up front throughout the season. They'll go up against one of the best front sevens in the entire country. So I honestly believe that this is a game that Tennessee should probably be favored in. Hard to believe they're a 7-point underdog. I just can't get out of my mind, David, that lasting memory of the last time they played in the Horseshoe against Michigan, watching Michigan without any sort of threat of the pass game at all, just run the ball right down their throat the second half, nothing they could do about it. And then Will Howard just being there's a kind of a mess there in the inability to throw the football. So I'm with you. I think Tennessee wins this game, and I think they win it by 10 points.
How about the other orange teams, I should say, Clemson and Texas in Austin? Texas, I've given them the props that they deserve. They're legit. I question some of their wins this year because their best win has been A&M and I guess Vandy. That being said, they're stacked defensively. Offensive had some issues. Clemson, I'm not really a believer in, but I like Dabo's story. I like the situation he's in. Just how do you see this one?
I think there's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day and Ohio State to start fast after what happened last week. I also think there's a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers and that offense for Texas to start fast. Like if things come out and they slog around a little bit and Quinn's throwing the ball inaccurately, that crowd's going to be antsy to see Arch Manning, and you hate to have your crowd kind of turn against you. So I think it's really important for them to come out and be efficient early on. I also think there's a decent amount of pressure on Cade Klubnik returning to his home city. I can tell you my first time back into Florida when I was playing in the NFL, all the ticket requests, all the family and friends you feel like you got to see, all the pressure you put on yourself. So I think while I don't think there's any pressure at all on Clemson, I think they're playing with house money. I do think Cade Klubnik probably feels a little bit of it. But I think the roster differential is just so significant between Texas and Clemson. I don't know that there's anybody in the country that has more talent at the skill positions around the quarterback than Texas does. And I think the offensive line, while they were taken advantage of by Georgia in the two games they played, Clemson's defensive line is not made like Georgia's is. So I think this is another double-digit win for the SEC team.
How about the biggest underdog to win this weekend? Who do you think that is? Of all the underdogs that have a chance, who do you think has the best chance to win?
God, Dave, we just talked about this a little bit. With as wild as the regular season was, you have to believe that there's going to be some upsets. But I honestly believe that there's probably going to be a lot of chalk as this thing plays out. I think we end up seeing Oregon and Georgia play, even though Carson Beck's probably going to miss the entire playoff. I do think those two teams end up meeting for the national championship. But I think probably if you ask me the biggest upset, I think it's probably Tennessee. I don't know that SMU goes up and wins in Happy Valley. And Indiana may be the most unproven team of anybody in this tournament. So I think Notre Dame probably wins that game as well.
Hey, I want to ask you about Florida because I was thinking about this earlier today. If A&M were to lose their bowl game to USC and Florida wins their bowl game, is it today? It's today, right? Maybe it's
today, 3:30.
Yeah. They'll both be 8-5. And there was a point in the season where I saw A&M like this and Florida like this. I think A&M is going to beat USC. That's a different conversation. But just, I guess I'm speaking to the fact of what Billy Napier did because they tried to fire him 19 times this season, it felt like. And then all of a sudden, he got the quarterback situation figured out, and they started playing great.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, Texas A&M and Florida in that same breath, because after the Texas A&M game, fans were ready to have Billy Napier hit the road. It wasn't just the losses to Miami and Texas A&M. It was the manner in which Florida lost. They were pushed around on the lines of scrimmage. You remember that drive. What did Texas A&M go, like 99 yards and didn't throw the football one time on that drive, I think? So that's just emasculating when a team is able to push you around on the line like that. And you talked about DJ Lagway and his impact on the team, but I can't explain how they went from having these deficiencies on the offensive and defensive lines and turned them into strengths. Even when DJ Lagway was hurt, they still were able to run the ball late against Georgia, still ran the ball very well down the last month of the season. The defensive line became aggressive and penetrating and disruptive. I don't know where all of that came from, but it did seem like after A&M that the team took a little bit more ownership and they got some traction. And you're seeing a bowl game that I think the bowl game for A&M and the bowl game for Florida means an awful lot. In a day and age where if you're not playing in the college football playoff, people would say it doesn't mean that much. I think bowl games can serve as a celebration of the season you've had. And I think it can also serve as a springboard for next year. And I think for Mike Elko in his first season, it's big time important that they have a win in this game against USC to get that momentum going into next season. I think for Florida, the momentum they've already created, they haven't won a bowl game since 2019. This is one that they need to have. And I think against a shorthanded Tulane team, I think Florida probably gets the dub.
One other thing on Florida, which I find interesting, is that I think the arrow's pointing up, but they have the exact same schedule next year, just flipped. So what would be considered success next year?
Yeah, I honestly, heading into the season this year, Florida was projected by Vegas to win 4.5 games. I thought they were a 7-win team, and then after that second loss of the season to Texas A&M, I thought they were probably a 3-win team at that point. But somehow you said it. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen a more remarkable turnaround in season. And I know you name Clark Lee and you can name probably Sark and Kirby and you can name Shane Beamer as coaches of the year candidates. But I thought Billy Napier was in that same conversation with the job that he did to keep that locker room together and get them all pushing in the same direction. So I think next year the expectation goes up. And there's a lot of Florida fans that are already talking about being a playoff team next year. I don't know if they can make that big of a jump, but if you look at all the players that are already participating in the bowl game, that are planning on coming back, that have made that announcement, and the recruiting class that Florida put together, I think they could win. I think they could be an 8 or 9 win regular season team. And I think that would feel probably like a win with the right wins being picked up.
As for A&M, disappointing end of the season, but do you feel like even though November happened and November was terrible, they're headed in the right direction, Chris?
I do. I mean, I think it starts with having the right guy. And I certainly think Mike Elko is the right guy to lead that program. His ability to come in and get everybody to buy in immediately was remarkable. I think they're still continuing to build who they want to be from an identity standpoint. Defensively, they're always going to be tough up front on the defensive line. When you lose Moss, I mean, he was kind of the physical presence on that offense that they didn't have once he went down with the injury. So that hurt them. But I think getting Marcel Reed back, having him play in the bowl game, I think another one of those things where you can use that to serve for next year as the starting point to build upon for 2025.
Chris, I appreciate it, man. Merry Christmas. Enjoy Columbus, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Sounds good, man. Merry Christmas to you guys, too. Thanks for having me.